I literally cannot believe what I just watched. The New York Mets just had an unbelievable comeback victory thanks to a Nolan Arenado error. And I have the host of Locked On Cardinals with me to talk about it. So this is going to be a great show. This is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, already breaking down that thrilling game, talking about what lies ahead in this series, and also a little Robinson Cano, Albert Pujols comparison because the Cardinals have a veteran player that's good. The Mets have one that is terrible. We're going to go through all of that on this edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What a game, Lucas, huh? I thought we were just going to talk Scherzer Michaelis. How are you feeling right now, man?
You know what? I'm trying to keep in mind the fact that baseball is not life, but that one hurt. That is the definition of a heartbreaker. You know, the Cardinals, because I'll say this. This is on my Locked On Now that I posted too. If you would have told me before the game that Miles Michaelis matches zeros and gives you 7 shutout innings against Max Scherzer, I'm feeling great. I feel good about the Cardinal chances, and then that's exactly what happened. And the bullpen faltered a little bit, as well as a rare error by the best defensive third baseman in all of baseball in the 9th. Without a doubt, easily the most heartbreaking loss of the year to date for the Cardinals, and I would imagine one of the more exciting wins to date for the Mets.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with a giddy smile on my face as you're going through.
I see it. No, I was there. I got it.
I look, I don't want to rub it in. I really don't, because I've been there so many times. I tweeted out when it happened. Like I feel like I've never seen the Mets on the right side of a game like that. It was just insane. I mean, look, again, I thought we were just going to be talking about, I was going to be asking about Michaelis, like, how has he been able to do this year? Because I didn't think that he was an ace type pitcher, but through 4 starts, he's been that for the Cardinals. And then we get this finish that we got to talk about first. So let's just start off with what happens there. Let's go through it. I mean, you have the error from Arenado. Well, first, I guess Mark Canha, great at bat to hang in there. What happened on that play for Arenado? We've seen him make that play so many times. A little bit of a double clutch, airmailed the throw. It was just shocking to see it.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be asked about it post-game. I'm interested to see what he has to say if he didn't have a good grip, if it was something weird like that. But no, you're absolutely right. We've seen him make that play 100 times in a Cardinal uniform, let alone the amount of times he's made it in his career with the Rockies. I mean, I literally, as soon as that ground ball was hit, I started tweeting out my final post-game tweet of a Cardinal win.
That's it. Yeah.
And then it was an airmail. And even, the play that really – before the home run was the momentum sealer for the Mets. Ground ball to first base. Paul Goldschmidt makes a fantastic play on it to keep the ball in the infield. Giovanni Gallegos, I'm sure he'll be asked about this in postgame too, had a little bit of a brain fart, for lack of a little more elegant phrase. And he hesitated just enough that I think Dominic Smith was the one running there. Slides in safely. No argument there. And then Jeff McNeil heads up base running as well to sneak in behind there. Just 2 uncharacteristic plays by the Cardinal defense, because in my opinion, it's the best defense in baseball. So really uncharacteristic by the Cardinals, especially when you're looking at Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. 2 really uncharacteristic mistakes by Arenado and Gallegos to not give the Mets the win, but to leave the door open for a Mets win.
Oh, yeah. And I think, set it up better for the audience who might not have watched the game. Eduardo Escobar got a hit, so the Mets had one runner on. Cano made the second out. So it's 2 outs. Mark Canha has this great at-bat. There is that. I guess they are ruling it they ruled it a single with a throwing error, so that's interesting. Yep. But again, that's how the Mets get the first run. Jeff McNeil doubles that put 2 runners on for Dom, and like you said, Goldschmidt unable to make that play, and both runners come across as Jeff McNeil really heads up. And then Nimmo, first pitch. I feel like on the Mets broadcast, I didn't even see it. Like, you didn't see the pitch come in; they just cut back to the game, and the ball was already leaving the yard. It was one of those home runs. Just crazy, just a crazy finish. This is a Mets team that's been, it's early to talk about a team having the magic and stuff like that. Right. But I think you've seen, obviously, some World Series teams with the Cardinals. Sometimes some teams just have it. And early in this season, things are just breaking right for the Mets. Looking at the early part of that game, though, what did you see from Michaelis? Because again, he has been sensational. That's what I was planning on talking about with you.
Right.
What has it been so far this year that's allowed him to be so successful?
He's finding what he did in 2018, because in 2018, this guy garnered Cy Young votes. He led the league in when 18 wins. He had an ERA sub 2.5. And there's a tweet that I quote tweeted earlier tonight by Brendan Schaefer, who covers the Cardinals for KMOV TV station. His last 3 starts have been impeccable. 18 2/3 of an inning pitch, just 1 earned run, 17 strikeouts. That's a .48 ERA and a 0.69 WHIP. Plain and simple. I talk about this a lot on Locked On Cardinals, that the Cardinals pitching just needs to keep the ball on the ground. It's 9 times out of 10, you're going to get it out if the ball is hit on the ground. And he was able to keep this Mets offense, which is no slight of an offense. I think this is probably one of the better offenses the Cardinals have faced this year. But at the end of the day, he was able to get 7 outs on the ground, and that's going to be huge for him. And he was able to, he only walked 1 batter. When he's throwing strikes and keeping the ball in the ballpark, Michaelis is going to be successful. We even saw that at stint in 2019. In 2019, he led the league in losses. I know some people don't like wins and losses, and I get it, but those are just kind of 2 different ends of the spectrum that Michaelis has been on over the course of his major league career. So it's really simple. Keep the ball in the ballpark for Michaelis, specifically on the ground, and don't walk anybody. He walked 1 batter tonight, but he's just been absolutely sensational. This starting rotation is one that has had a lot of questions about it. Had it going into the season, especially with the Flaherty injury. And we'll talk about Steven Matz in segment number 2. But like I mentioned, he was just able to match Max Scherzer tonight. Max Scherzer, it just seems bizarre to me that he's still a New York Met. He was sensational tonight, striking out 10 Cardinals. I heard of the radio broadcast. This is the 106th time in Max Scherzer's career that he has struck out 10 or more in a game. What didn't you see from Scherzer tonight that he wasn't doing phenomenally well? And what have you liked from him in his first handful of Met starts?
Look, like you said, you say you can't believe it. I mean, for me, it's just years of watching this guy torment the Mets in a Nationals jersey. It doesn't make sense to me. Even now, 4 starts in, seeing him wear that Mets uniform, seeing the way he just goes out there and dominates the bulldog mentality, and you just hated facing him. So now to see him on your side, and it just seems like every single game, even when he hasn't had his best stuff, the guy just competes. And on top of what he has done, in starts like this, I mean, obviously his last 2 starts, he carries a perfect game into, was it the 6th or the 7th, the last time out? This time, the 10 strikeouts, only gives up 2 hits. One of those hits, I mean, Francisco Lindor, if he cuts that off, I think he probably makes that play. So, just was untouchable tonight. But for me, what Scherzer's really done is he's just changed this entire team with his leadership. I think even the days where he's not pitching, we're seeing Scherzer have an impact on just making this team believe that they can be a winner. And tonight, you know what? There was no quit in that Mets team. I mean, the Cardinals certainly allowed them to get back into that game, but you have to put the opposition in position to blow a game like that. You have to put the ball in play. You have to grind out at bats. And I really do think that Scherzer has just been a big part of changing the culture of this Mets team at this point in the season.
Well, Michaelis versus Scherzer alone was worth the price of admission tonight. I mean, those two, and they were doing it in different ways. Michaelis wasn't blowing anybody away with 101 or 98 or whatever it was. I mean, Cardinals just looked overpowered. And there are certain days when the offense doesn't hit that you think, man, they need to be better. When you're going up against Max Scherzer, there's really nothing you can do about it. I mean, this dude is a first ballot Hall of Famer without a doubt in my mind. Oh, yeah. It's not even close. The only question is what hat is he going to wear on his plaque? That is the only question for Max Scherzer in his Hall of Fame voting ballot, whatever. And he always steps up against the Cardinals. He's from Chesterfield, which is a suburb of St. Louis, went to the University of Missouri. A lot of fans have wanted him here every time he's hit the free agent market over the course of his career, and it just hasn't been able to work out. And he absolutely he feels like he has something to prove. If I were a guessing man, and he proves it every single time he pitches in St. Louis or against St. Louis on the road, dude just absolutely dominates. And tonight, it was absolutely no different. I think Tommy Evans struck out 3 times on 10 pitches, or somebody did. I saw a tweet about that.
And Mundo Sosa.
Yeah, it was.
But it might have been 2. I think I saw there was 6 guys that might have struck out on 3 pitches tonight, or something ridiculous.
Well, Sosa did strike out 4 times tonight. I think 3 of those was against Scherzer, so that would make sense. So it wasn't Edman, then it was Sosa. You're right.
Yeah, nice golden sombrero for him. So I want to talk about the next couple of games here. We got some interesting pitching matchups. Before we get to that, though, BetOnline is your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. You can bet on like Max Scherzer strikeouts for props. I may have cashed that one in tonight. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, I'm really fascinated to ask you about Jordan Hicks, because so far this year, I've seen he's only gone about 3 innings in any of these starts. Is he a starter? Is he like a super opener? What's going on here with Hicks? Why did they move him from the bullpen, where he's been so successful, over to the starting rotation?
I like that term, super opener. I like that. He was a starter at the minor league level. One of
Yeah.
these guys that came up, and when he came up, he was the flamethrower. He was throwing 103. He hit 105 against Odubel Herrera on the Philadelphia Phillies in 2018. So that's all he needed to rely on. He has always expressed the interest in returning to the starting rotation. I think a name that is kind of the reason that they felt comfortable enough getting him in the starting rotation is Ryan Helsley. Ryan Helsley has just been nails for the St. Louis Cardinals bullpen this year. And Hicks, while he always had the stuff, never really had the results to back it up for over an extended period of time. So when Flaherty went down before spring training started, that fifth starter spot opened up. We heard Verhagen, who's now in the IL. We heard Jake Woodford, who's pitched a total of 4 innings this year. We heard Whitgren might have even gotten some looks as an opener-style pitcher. We heard Liberatore. We heard Hicks, and Hicks was kind of a wild card. He's like, they're not actually, because it was going to be a question of whether or not they could stretch him out. And that's why he's only made 1 start this season. The other 2 have been piggybacks off of, one was off of Dakota Hudson, and I forget who the other one was off of. So, and with rainouts, he just haven't been able to get him the starts that he wanted to. But he's impressed overall. Even in his start, when he only went 3 innings in his most recent start, he has impressed. The question for me is he going to be effective dialing down the velocity? And what is that third tertiary pitch going to be? We haven't really seen much of a third pitch yet. Him, because he's only gone 3 innings. In his start against Miami, he went 3 innings, gave up an earned run. He walked 2 and struck out 3. So we'll see if he does break out a little bit more of a tertiary pitch against the Mets tomorrow night. But I expect him to go 4 to 5 innings, or that would be a reasonable expectation. But I talked about this going into his last start. It's not so much the innings I'm looking at. It's how does the stuff look? How does the stuff play as a starter versus as a reliever? Because it can be very different. Remember when Aroldis Chapman wanted to start early in his career, that didn't work out very well. He was meant for the bullpen. Maybe Hicks is going to be the other way around, where he is meant to be a starter, just like he was in the minor leagues coming all the way up. So we'll see. I think I've been optimistically impressed, and I'm cautiously optimistic going forward for what Hicks can do as a starter.
Yeah, I think the Mets have had something similar, as far as just a guy kind of caught between Seth Lugo. The difference is Lugo's a guy that has 5-6 pitches. So he really does profile as a starter who's just happened to be more successful out of the pen. I mean, Hicks is the prototypical closer, if you ever had one, as far as just, like you said, 103, nasty stuff that plays up out of the pen. And you're right, it's going to be really interesting to see, like, can he maintain that 2-3 times through an order? Right now, you're saying maybe if everything breaks right tomorrow, we could see him 4 or 5 innings. That's going to put some more pressure on that Cardinals bullpen. But as you said, the bullpen has been pretty good. How's that guy Gallegos been all year? I'm sorry.
He's been really good all year.
I had to poke a little bit of fun.
It was just tonight, man. Oh,
cocky Mets fans.
The Mets
back,
have had
man.
their fair. They've had their fair share of moments. They've been the Mets for a while,
yes.
And maybe now they're starting to get on the, like you said, the other side of it. And maybe it's these kind of wins that would have eluded the Mets in years past. But I will say one thing that the Cardinals will always have till the end of time is that beautiful 12-6 curveball that Wainwright just dropped in on Beltran. I know that I'm down for the count tonight. The Cardinals lost, and I'll take that L. But I'm not letting you go any crossover without bringing that up from here till one of us leaves.
I absolutely deserve that. I was even going to bring up 06 in our last segment. We talk about Pujols and some of those guys on the retirement tour this year. But there is a common interest player that we have here on the Cardinals, Steven Matz. I know he got roughed up early, but it seems like he's sort of settled down a bit. What have you seen from him so far this season?
That ground ball rate. I mean, I think he got 7, if not 8 ground outs in his most recent start against Cincinnati. I feel like I'm getting a dead horse whenever I talk about the starting rotation. What do the Cardinals need to do to be successful? keep the ball on the ground. And Steven Matz was electric at that in his career. We talked about that when the Cardinals first signed him. He's a typical Cardinal. He goes out there, gets the job done, throws strikes, and does his job. He was phenomenal against Cincinnati in his last time out. Time before that, he was really good against the Brewers. Again, the Mets are probably going to be the best offense he's faced all year. You might be able to compare them to the Brewers. That's an interesting conversation. But offensively speaking, this will be one of the better ones he's faced all year. And the Cardinals don't have an easy task going up against Carrasco or Bassett over the next 2 days, and I want to ask you about that next. But other than that first start against Pittsburgh, Matz has been as good as advertised. He has been what he was in 16 for the Mets and what he was last year for the Blue Jays. Throwing strikes, getting the job done. The only quarrel or the only qualm I have with it is that he's only going 5 innings. I'd like to see him be able to get through 6, maybe get into the 7th rather than going 5 2/3. But at the end of the day, if you're going 5 innings every time out and not allowing a run, I'm not complaining too much, right? Over the course of 162 for the St. Louis Cardinals. But the Mets have a new arm going tomorrow, new to their rotation this year, just like they had in Scherzer yesterday. What have you liked out of Chris Bassett so far to start the season?
It's interesting to see Bassett and Carrasco pitching back to back because I look at these guys as very similar pitchers in that they're veterans who have a pretty deep bag of pitches they can throw and deploy, and they just have a great idea of what they're doing out there. One of the things I loved about this Mets rotation coming into this season is all the veterans that they had, and you're seeing it during these games. You saw it tonight. Bassett talking to Scherzer in the dugout. These guys are really, melding their minds together and coming up with ways to strategize against some of these lineups. And so it's really tough if you're a Cardinals team to have to go Scherzer, Bassett, Carrasco. I mean, just 3 veterans. You look at what Carrasco has done throughout his career. I think he's become one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball, especially because he had such a down year last season. And really, I think he would have been the Mets' Chris Bassett last year had he been healthy. So now you have both of these guys who are just giving you quality efforts. Even when Bassett got knocked around his last start, he still got you through 6 innings, even though I think he gave up 5 runs. That's huge for a team. That was a start that he had when the Mets had a doubleheader that week. The bullpen could have been taxed. They're getting length out of these guys. Carrasco was unbelievable his last time out, the first pitcher this year for the Mets that actually pitched in the 8th inning, or the first starter, I should say. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for the Cardinals. These are 2 guys that have been really dealing, and I think that they're going to give you or give the Mets a couple more good outings here against a Cardinals team that has been struggling a little bit offensively.
Yeah, I mean, even though they were 4-2 last week on their 6-game long road trip to Miami and Cincinnati, but yeah, offensively recently they've been struggling. Outside of Nolan Arenado, no one's really been overly hot. Goldschmidt starting to heat up a little bit. Tyler O'Neill had the big hit Monday night or tonight, so he's starting to get there a little bit. But you have a lot of question marks. The shortstop position and the catching position right now are outs large. I mean, I know Molina started the rally tonight, but you just have a lot of question marks in that lineup. We're yet to see this outfield get rolling, even though I do think by the season's end, they'll be regarded as the best outfield in all of baseball. But I talked about it on yesterday's Locked On Cardinals. This is not going to be an easy series for the Cardinals offensively. I mean, these 3 could not have come at a worse time for the Cardinals, in all honesty. But I wanted to ask about the bullpen setup because obviously, 7 innings is pretty quality. You had the closer Diaz go tonight. The Cardinals are probably going to need to rely on the bullpen a little bit more with Jordan Hicks, maybe at most giving you 5 innings. So we'll likely see, maybe we'll see Jake Woodford tomorrow as a piggyback, maybe Whitgren. But who is rested, who's unavailable for the bullpen situation now with the Mets? Has Diaz been used back-to-back nights, or is he available for tomorrow in a closing situation? What's the situation there at the bullpen?
I think Diaz will still be good to go if the Mets need him in a tight save situation. Seth Lugo got a day off today, so Lugo has been another guy they've gone to close out some games. Drew Smith is another guy that's been, starting to get some of those high leverage opportunities. So those are the 2 guys I would expect to see early tomorrow is Lugo and Smith, and then if the game's really close, Diaz could certainly go again. Trevor May has looked bad this year. I mean, that's and we saw it again today. So I imagine he'll be shelved for at least the game tomorrow, probably available for the last game. The Mets are in an interesting spot right now where they're still trying to figure it out when it comes to their late inning relievers. The one guy that you really can count on is Diaz, and then they're trying to cobble it together from there. But early this season, the bullpen has been the biggest soft spot on this Mets team, and it really hasn't even been that big of an issue. They've just blown a couple of games here.
Cardinals bullpen has been the exact opposite tonight,
Yeah.
notwithstanding. But you look at T.J. McFarland gave up his first earned run with a Nimmo home run tonight. Giovanni Gallegos has been so good all year. I know all year. It's only 3 weeks into the season. But you
And
have
tonight he
Ryan.
was out. I mean, let's just say tonight Arenado makes that play. That's a save. So
Right. And if he
covers.
if he covers, yes, we'll say it that way. If he covers, then you have a save too. But besides him, Genesis Cabrera, who pitched tonight, he was just filthy. And when he's at his best, despite what John Heyman might think, he's one of the best relievers in all of baseball. And I'm not shy in saying that Helsley, Cabrera, and Gallegos could be the new big three. Cardinals had a big three last year. But what makes this bullpen so much different, even though you have a similar amount of names, you have so many more options because Helsley is now in there that he wasn't in last year. TJ McFarland, again, tonight notwithstanding, he's been very, very solid. Nick Whitgren has been solid. You have more than just 3 options in this Cardinal bullpen, but I would imagine TJ McFarland is done for at least tomorrow as he pitched 2 innings on Sunday and then that 1 appearance tonight. But other than that, this Cardinal bullpen is pretty well rested because of the length they've gotten from their pitching, especially over the weekend in Cincinnati. This bullpen's well rested, and they're going to need it if Hicks is only able to go 5 tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting last couple of games of this series. I'm curious if we get to see Albert Pujols at all. No lefty starters for the Mets, so we'll see what happens there. And I want to talk about Pujols a little bit more in just a minute. But this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure the often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry, when instead you can use rockauto.com and save 30%, 50%, maybe even 100% more for the exact same amount of parts from a chain store or a car dealership. Rock Auto is a family business that's been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every customer. So go explore their easy-to-use website today. Find the solution to your auto parts needs. And when you're there at rockauto.com, make sure that you write the code or write our locked on in there. How'd you hear about us box? So they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So I told you coming in that I wanted to rip Robinson Cano a little bit more. We're at a point in the season where I am done with the Cano experiment. I was loud wrong on that over the offseason. I thought that Cano might still have something left in the tank, and he just looks like a complete washed player at this point. Every at bat seems like it is a rolled over ground ball or a strikeout where he swings at a pitch 10 feet out of the strike zone. Meanwhile, Albert Pujols, 42 years old, still matches against lefties. When I checked coming into the series, I think his OPS was at 883 or something close to it. So what have you seen in his return? Actually, first off, as a Cardinals fan, what was it like when you found out the news that Albert Pujols would be back for this season?
Oh my God. I thought I was dreaming. I tried to pinch myself. Not even of just overexcitement, just that I didn't think the Cardinals would actually do it. Right. It was reported a day or two before that the signing was made official by Katie Woo of The Athletic that they had conversations. And there was a beautiful piece in The Athletic by Katie detailing more, as more details came out that was released a couple of days ago. But I was actually about to go to sleep. The news broke by all the reporters like 11:30 at night, and I was about to go to Nashville the next day. So I had to get up at like 6 a.m. to record an emergency. I had stuff in the bank recorded for a spring break. It was one of those things that just didn't seem real. And then you saw him in a Cardinal spring training uniform the next day, and you still had to pinch yourself. And then you saw him on opening day in the starting rotation with Adam Wainwright on the mound and Yadier Molina behind the plate. I can't put it into words. I would have to think and sit even longer. But he's been, from a baseball standpoint, he's been as good as you can expect a 42-year-old to be. I talked about this a lot, that it makes all the emotional sense in the world to bring him back, and it makes just enough baseball sense to pull the trigger. Right? Because now you have a DH against left-handed pitching because Corey Dickerson has not been that great to start his season. You have the leadership that Albert Pujols brings. You have just a re-energized Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright and Albert specifically as well. But even Nolan Arenado, who when Albert came back to the Cardinals with the Dodgers 2 seasons ago, Nolan Arenado was just ecstatic that he was coming back and that he hopes to go out on his own terms, and a little bit of foreshadowing by Arenado. But he hit, 1 home run, I believe it was either opening weekend or early in the season in St. Louis, and then a monster home run in Milwaukee. he's been really as good as you can ask for out of a 42-year-old. And yeah, you're right. We'll likely not see him this week unless the matchups work out. And Malmarl has started him against a righty a couple times, but it's been really more than what I would have thought. I don't think he's going to get 700. He needs 19 home runs left this season to get to 700. So that'll be an interesting chase if he gets there. But based on your conversations before this and your preview right there, I'm guessing you're a little more happy with what Albert has done versus what Cano has done for the New York Mets.
Yeah, well, it's the complete opposite. Albert has all the goodwill. Albert does not have any reputation of steroid use. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's even, whatever the extra tier that is, he's in that inner circle of Hall of Famers with the Willie Mays, the Babe Ruths, Hank Aaron's. I mean, what he has done in his career, just incredible. Robinson Cano is the opposite end of the spectrum, where he has no tie to this organization. All he has done since coming to this organization is either underperform or test positive for steroids again. And yeah, I don't think that there really is even a role for him either. You look at what Cano does for this team, and I look at Dominic Smith, and I just think he's eating away Dom's at bats. These are guys that have very similar profiles as left-handed, supposedly power hitters, although neither of them has really tapped into that this season at this stage. But I'm at the point here when the rosters go down to 26, I'm going to be really fascinated to see what the Mets do, because you can make the argument right now he could get cut. And you have a Mets bench right now that I don't think that they're going to just cut a J.D. Davis or a Dominic Smith. I think they need Louis Guillorme as a backup shortstop. They need Nito. Obviously, you have to have a backup catcher. If you don't cut him, you're cutting Travis Jankowski, and Jankowski has done a lot for the Mets this season, giving them another glove in the outfield, giving them a lot of speed, and he's given them pretty good at bats. So I'm really curious to see what the Mets do here. Buck Showalter seems to be infatuated with Cano for some reason. So he gets a lot of run. He's hitting early in the lineup, and it doesn't make sense to me. I want to close the show today, though, maybe just painting a narrative for you. And this is going to be great for your Cardinals listeners. 2006, the team that, has, I think, the lowest winning percentage ever to win a World Series. The Cardinals are an 83 win team, I believe.
83 and 79, if I remember the loss count right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And they somehow beat my Mets, 11 years old. I was devastated. I'll never forget Aaron Heilman. Okay. Everyone wants to blame Beltran. Everyone forgets Carlos Beltran was incredible in that series.
Oh my goodness gracious. He was on another level.
Yes. In that spot, he struck out, and Mets fans will never let him forget it. But Aaron Heilman was the one that gave up the home run. Was it to Yachty? I think it might have been to Yachty.
Yachty was game. Yes. Yachty or Roland hit one. No, I think it was Yachty.
I got to be honest. Your memory is pretty good. How old were you in 2006, Lucas?
Oh, I was 6. I was 6 in that year. Yeah. I have like flashbacks of watching that series. I remember 2011 very well. I was 11 that year, but most of my knowledge, like actual knowledge, comes from reading about it, watching it, and things of that nature. Yeah, it was Yachty, because Roland hit the one that the left fielder brought back, Chavez. Yeah. So that was the one Roland hit. Yachty hit the one in Game 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I could see a scenario this year. I don't know. Maybe the Cardinals are the winners of the Central. We'll see what happens. But wouldn't it be interesting if these two teams met in the NLCS again, with the Mets being this team? Because in 2006, the Mets were kind of the class of the National League. I mean, they were this star-studded team with Pedro and Tom Glavine and Carlos Delgado, David Wright, Carlos Beltran, that lineup, Paul LaDuca. And they run into this shocking little buzzsaw that was the Cardinals. And they completely broke our hearts as Mets fans. So it would be really interesting if these teams were to meet again, especially just considering that history and considering the fact that this is the last go around for that big three of Cardinals legends with Pujols and Wainwright and Molina. I would actually think that might be one of the better series that we could find this season.
Oh, I agree. And I think that the Cardinals, again, I've talked about this a lot. Vinny of Locked On Brewers doesn't necessarily agree with me, but that's okay. I think the Cardinals are the favorite to win this division. I just think this offense is too good for what they've been doing so far, and this pitching will not get the recognition it deserves, both in the rotation and in the bullpen. But this pitching is so good. Like, trust me, it is so good. So I think that's definitely a route that the Cardinals could go. But as we saw in 2006, winning the 11 games in October, I think it's more than that now with the extra rounds. But winning the games in October, that's when it matters more than winning the 80 to 90 that you need to get in the regular season. So I would love it if the Cardinals met the Mets in October this year. And I think that, would it be more fitting for Adam Wainwright to get tagged with a loss in Game 7 or for Adam Wainwright to get the last out in Game 7 again? Which one would be? I think we might have different answers, but that would be quite the storyline if Wainwright got to start Game 7 of that series. That'd be something else.
It would be crazy. And you know what? Like you said, I think the pitching would be great in that series. I think we know defensively how good the Cardinals are. The Mets are a much improved defensive team with Canna and Marte on the outfield and some of the other changes they've made. So, look, I think that'll be very interesting, and we will certainly be talking again as these teams might square up, whether in the playoffs or the regular season. Thanks for joining me, Lucas. Why don't you tell my listeners where they can find your work?
Absolutely. At LJ Fastball on Twitter. You can also find the show's Twitter and Instagram at LO_Cardinals. Locked On Cardinals is on every single podcasting platform as well as on YouTube. Free Monday to Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Ryan, why don't you tell my listeners where they can find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Same deal, available everywhere you get your podcasts, available on YouTube. Thank you for making this your first listen today. Now for your second listen, check out Sully with Locked On MLB. He's got you covered with everything going on with Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.